Maria grew up in a small town where everyone knew each other's business. She was the daughter of a well-known family, respected and admired for their long-standing presence in the community. Her parents had raised her with strict values, emphasizing the importance of reputation and social standing. As she grew older, these ideals were deeply ingrained in her mind, shaping her worldview. Maria fell in love with João, a charming man from a nearby town. He was ambitious, kind, and had dreams of starting his own business. Maria was drawn to his determination and the way he treated her like she was the center of his world. They quickly became inseparable, and within a year, they were married. The townsfolk saw them as the perfect couple, destined for a bright future together. A few months after their wedding, Maria discovered she was pregnant. The news filled her with joy, and she eagerly shared it with João, who was equally thrilled. They spent the next several months preparing for the baby, decorating a nursery and buying tiny clothes. Maria dreamed of the day she would hold her child in her arms, imagining a little one with João's smile in her eyes. However, as her pregnancy progressed, Maria began to feel uneasy. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but something didn't feel right. She brushed it off, attributing her worries to the typical anxieties of becoming a first-time mother. The day finally arrived, and Maria went into labor. After hours of intense pain, she gave birth to a baby boy. As the nurse placed him in her arms, Maria's heart sank. The baby had dark skin, unlike anything she had expected. She stared at him in shock, her mind racing with confusion and fear. João, standing by her side, was silent, his face unreadable. Maria's thoughts spiraled out of control. How could this be? She had always assumed her child would look like her or João, but this was different. She thought back to her brief fling with a colleague at work before she had met João, a man who was black. The possibility that this man was the father of her child began to loom large in her mind, filling her with shame and dread. Days passed, and Maria could barely bring herself to look at her son. She felt no connection to him, only a growing sense of resentment. She worried incessantly about what people would say, how they would judge her. She imagined the whispers behind her back, the loss of respect from her parents, and the tarnishing of her family's reputation. João, on the other hand, tried to bond with the baby. He didn't ask questions, choosing instead to embrace the child as his own. But Maria's behavior worried him. She distanced herself from the baby, refusing to hold or feed him. Whenever she did look at him, it was with a cold, detached gaze. The strain between Maria and João grew unbearable. Their once loving relationship was now fraught with tension and unspoken accusations. João tried to talk to Maria, to understand what was going on, but she shut him out. She couldn't bear to admit the truth to him or to herself. One night, unable to cope with the weight of her secret any longer, Maria made a decision that would change their lives forever. She waited until João was asleep, quietly packed a bag with the baby's things, and slipped out of the house. She drove to a neighboring town, where she knew of a woman who had been trying to adopt a child for years. Maria had heard of this woman through a mutual acquaintance, and she knew she would provide a good home for the baby. When she arrived, the woman was shocked to see Maria standing at her door in the middle of the night, holding a newborn in her arms. Maria, her voice trembling, explained that she couldn't keep the baby, that he deserved a better life than she could give him. The woman, though confused, saw the desperation in Maria's eyes and agreed to take the baby in. Maria handed over the baby without a second glance. As she drove away, she felt a strange mixture of relief and guilt. She told herself she was doing what was best for the child, sparing him a life of shame and scrutiny. But deep down, she knew she was running from her own fears and insecurities. When she returned home, João was frantic, searching the house for their son. Maria lied, telling him that the baby had been taken to a special care facility due to a health issue. João was devastated but trusted Maria, believing she was doing what was best for their child. The months that followed were a blur for Maria. She went through the motions of life, but nothing felt real. She couldn't escape the guilt that gnawed at her, the hollow feeling of loss that she had created by her own hand. João continued to ask about the baby, but Maria's lies grew more convoluted and harder to maintain. Eventually, the truth came out. The woman who had taken in the baby couldn't keep such a secret forever, and word spread back to Maria's town. João was devastated when he learned what Maria had done, and the townsfolk were equally shocked. Maria's parents, horrified by the scandal, disowned her. Maria was left alone, her once perfect life in ruins. She had thought she was protecting her reputation, but in the end, she had lost everything she held dear. She was haunted by the memory of the child she had given away, the son she had never truly known. The story of Maria became a cautionary tale in the town, a reminder of the destructive power of fear and prejudice. And though the townsfolk eventually moved on, Maria's life would never be the same. She had made her choice, and it was one she would have to live with for the rest of her days.